Well, that didn't take very long at all. Hackers have already been able to add more games to the PS1 Classic. So the question now is it worth it now? From the very moment the PS1 Classic was unveiled, it was obvious that Sony wasn't working with the best the console had to offer. Those 5 initial games they showcased in that initial video just didn't make people that excited. And if that's what they're leading with, we all kind of knew that the full list was probably going to be pretty underwhelming. And sure enough, when the full list came out, gamers did a collective meh. My girlfriend even canceled her pre-order because it just wasn't worth it anymore. Now, of course, as it happened with the NES Classic and the SNES Classic, we all kind of knew that a hack would eventually unleash the full potential of the PS1 Classic, though I personally was a little bit skeptic. You see, the thing with the NES and the NES Classic, as I explained in a previous video, is that the ROMs for those systems are tiny, and whatever leftover space Nintendo managed to let slip by in these consoles would probably be enough for a whole bunch of games, and that's what happened. I hacked my SNES Classic and I added some 20 or 30 extra games to that thing because they're very small. Now, when it comes to PS1 ISOs, you're looking at a much bigger file size. So obviously, Sony wasn't going to add an extra 10 gigs of space to this thing. Well, it turns out I'm just not very imaginative, because what hackers were able to do is use one of the USB ports in the front of the console where you would connect the controller bundled with the system to put in a flash drive, which both hacks the system and works as an access port for the extra games. Now, of course, the problem with this method is that now you can't use 2 controllers. So you'll only be able to run these extra games that you load on your PS1 Classic by permanently jamming a thumb drive right into that port, which it's a little bit lame. You can only play single player if you do this. So a fair trade-off for sure. For most people, I think that's a fair trade-off. But personally, I don't like hacks that cripple the system in another way. So while I commend their ingenuity, this is obviously not the ideal solution just yet. For the time being, which is understandable because it's only been a week and change, the hack is still in its infancy. So the menu is a little bit janky. In fact, it would be great if they were able to rewrite the whole thing and add an actual selection menu to this thing. And I understand, I criticized this on my video about the PS1 Classic. I know that they were going for the original PS1 look and feel, but I think that you could still achieve that and make something that feels a little bit more modern. If they were going to very blatantly take inspiration in what Nintendo's doing, rip off their menu as well. Do something a little bit more modern looking. Make something that it looks like you put some more thought into this. Because as it stands, the PS1 Classic is pretty much the poster boy of half-assing things to cash in on a certain wave. They put the absolute bare minimum effort into this thing, and it shows. And of course, again, it falls on the hacking community to carry it the rest of the way. In a way, that's kind of what happened with the Vita. Sony put out the Vita, and they didn't support it as much as they probably should have, and hackers made the Vita way more useful, allowing it to run things that obviously Sony would never do, like emulators. But at the same time, these efforts made a product that was probably not long for this world and made it way more valuable. I got my Vita, I hacked it right away, and it's a much better system than a stock Vita. Now, one might assume that Sony almost wanted people to do this in a way, or, which is probably more likely, it's painfully obvious with everything else about this product, they just didn't put that much thought into it, because this thing was laughably easy to hack, much easier than the PSP, the Vita, much easier, in fact, than the NES and the SNES. And it's obvious they're not going to patch this thing in any way. They're not going to push any software updates. There's no easy way to do that. You'd have to tell owners to hook this thing up to a computer to update it, and that's just not going to happen. So this thing it might go down in history as probably the easiest thing to hack due to how little thought its company put into it, which I guess it's great for us. Now, to answer the initial question, does this make the PS1 worth it? You have to take into account that this thing costs $100 American, $130 here in Canada. For that price, okay, you're getting 2 controllers. That's good. But if you're going to mod it, which is, in my opinion, the only way this thing even comes close to being worth it, you're going to lose the ability to play multiplayer, which, like I said in the beginning, it hinders the potential a little bit. So I'm not sure. For me, for now, even with the added games, I still don't think the PS1 Classic is worth it. The presentation is still pretty lackluster. Emulation just isn't the greatest. Despite them using a free and open source emulator, they still didn't manage to get that quite right. Those 9 PAL games, again, I guess the games that it comes with right now, they become pointless. It's about just a piece of hardware that you can plug to your TV and with a little bit of tinkering, run any PS1 game you might want, provided of course it's not Ape Escape, because as of the time of shooting this video, they still haven't worked out a way to allow you to plug different controllers into the PS1 from what I could see here. So you're still stuck with that non-DualShock controller, which makes games like Ape Escape, for the time being, unfeasible. So if that was your favorite game, you still can play it just right now. This is likely to change very fast. Like I said, this system was not very well put together. Sony didn't put a lot of effort into making this unhackable like they have done in the past with things like the PSP and the PS Vita. They fought a lot more to keep on top of things with those two. There was a game of cat and mouse for years with hackers, where hackers would find a way to hack the PSP, and then Sony would push a software update, and now you can't go to the PSN unless you update this thing, and that would unjailbreak your PSP. That went on for a long time. This is not going to be it. Very clearly, Sony pushed this thing. It's done. This is it. Now if hackers get at it and they do all sorts of crazy things with this, which for now, just adding more PS1 games, it's not going to be very long before they find a way to run NES games, Super Nintendo games, Game Boy games. When that happens, now this is a more interesting proposition. If you can pick this up for $100, and if you're okay with only playing single player, but this allows you to play all those games on your TV, that's more interesting. Again, for me personally, the fact that I have so many other systems that allow me to do that, the fact that you won't be able to play multiplayer games because one of the USB ports is being occupied by the thumb drive that allows the hack in the first place, the fact that you won't be able to play a game like Ape Escape, I just don't like that there's so many concessions with this thing. The menu looks hideous, and even more so when you add more games because it's all janky. Again, I know, I'm aware that this will likely change, but right now, it's still a no from me. It's still not quite worth it. But what do you think? Have you changed your mind on the PS1 Classic? Were you at first on the fence, more leaning towards no, and now you're excited? Maybe you went out to buy one because you figured out that you can hack it. That's what I did with the original PSP. That's why I bought my PSP, because I knew you could hack and run emulators on it. Or do you think more like me? There's too many concessions here. There are other cheaper ways to run this library without so many caveats. What do you think? As always, let me know in the comments down below. Follow me on social media. I try to be very active over there. I'll give an example of what I mean here. This is my Twitter account. I have thumbnails for this video. I posted them on Twitter to get suggestions and feedback from people. Sometimes people give me some good ideas on what I should change, what I should keep. So as you can see, if I scroll down, there's a bunch of people saying what they think, which one they prefer. They give me feedback on the whole craft of creating the thumbnail. I'm not sure if you're into this behind the scenes kind of stuff, but that's pretty much what my Twitter is all about. So go follow me right now. The links for that are all in the description, as well as our Discord server. Stardew Valley multiplayer on the Switch is out right now. I'm looking for more people to play with, so make sure to hit us up down there. Let me know where you're from. I'm always fascinated to find out where you guys are watching these videos from. Oh hey, I almost forgot. 99 Vidas, my indie game based on my Brazilian gaming podcast of the same name, is now available on the Switch, which is my favorite way to play the game. 99 Vidas, which by the way means 99 lives in Portuguese, is a 16-bit inspired street brawler in the style of classics like Captain Commando or Streets of Rage. There are tons of unlockable characters, bonus levels, challenging boss fights. There's an online mode. We put a lot of thought and work into 99 Vidas, and I think you will find that it shows. I did my own voice acting and everything. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but the soundtrack on this thing alone is worth the price of admission in my opinion. Just like every other Switch fan out there, we hate the so-called Switch tax, where indie games land on the eShop with a higher price point than their Steam versions. So 99 Vidas is actually cheaper on the Switch than on Steam right now, only $10. And hey, don't just take my word for it. There's a demo for you to try it free. So go to the eShop right now and download 99 Vidas. And that's all the time I have for today. I'm Izzy and I'm done.